No warnings, just karma.
I wasn't invited. Not this year. Not the year before. Not for the last 10 years. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning at 9:12 a.m. Subject line desperate to sound warm and accidental. Whitmore Family Retreat 2025 RSVP by Friday. It wasn't meant for me. I knew that before I even opened it, but I clicked anyway. Some habits don't die. They just sit quietly in your chest and wait for moments like this. Everyone was there. Camille, of course, center of every frame like the world tilted slightly in her favor. Her husband smiling like a polite accessory. Their two boys already tall enough to look like strangers. Aunt Janine from Savannah posing with a sun hat too big for her head. Uncle Roger still wearing that ridiculous fishing hat he thinks makes him look rugged. Even Cousin Lily, who once stole my prom dress and swore on her dog's life she didn't. But not me, not even a typo version. No Carla, no Clara. Just air where I should have been. That kind of exclusion doesn't shout. It hums, low, constant, like a refrigerator running in the background until one day the silence reminds you it's gone. I sat in my glass office in Santa Monica, surrounded by deadlines, contracts, and a skyline I fought hard to earn. A corner office at 34, equity, staff, respect, everything that was supposed to feel like a rival. But the room felt cold in a way California sunlight couldn't fix. I read the email again, then looked at my own name in my inbox signature, Clara Whitmore, present in everything except my own family. I almost closed the laptop, almost. But something steadier than anger made me open a new tab. I typed the name of the beach house, a wide whitewashed place on the Georgia coast, wraparound porch, peeling blue shutters, porch swing that always leaned slightly left. The last place I saw my father laugh before the stroke took half his words away. The listing came up instantly. Not for rent, for sale. No announcement, no family message, no soft emotional explanation, just square footage, drone shots, and a price drop in bold red letters, price reduced, seller motivated, deed under review. I recognized the agent. She'd handled my grandmother's estate 10 years ago. And just like that, the air changed. They were getting rid of it, the house. The history. The last physical place where my father's voice still seemed to echo off the hallway walls, selling it quietly, the same way they erased me. Not with a fight, not with a scene, just paperwork and silence. But I wasn't angry, not yet. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the bookshelf behind me. There it was. The turquoise shell my father gave me when I was 9. He'd rinsed it in the ocean, brushed off the sand, and placed it in my palm like it was treasure. You think in tides, Clara, he'd said, not waves. Don't ever let them make you small. That was the moment the idea began. They erased my name from the invitation, but they forgot something important. I still remembered how to sign one. The thing about being erased is no one ever announces it. There's no meeting, no vote, no formal goodbye. It happens in edits, a cropped photo, a group chat that goes silent when you speak, a holiday plan everyone agreed on that you somehow never heard about. At first, I tried. I sent birthday gifts with tracking numbers. I called on Sundays. I flew home for Thanksgiving even when the ticket cost more than my rent. I sat at the kids' table long after I was old enough for wine and opinions. I laughed at stories I'd already heard about moments I wasn't there for. I made myself smaller so I could still fit. But usefulness has an expiration date. And once you're no longer needed, you become optional. Camille was never optional. She was warm, loud, photogenic in a way that made strangers trust her instantly. She organized themed reunions, designed matching t-shirts, once called me from a craft store to ask whether teal or coral napkins better captured coastal joy. I told her I probably wouldn't make it that year. She said, "That's okay, Clara, we'll save you a plate." They never did. After Dad's stroke, I was the one who flew out without being asked. I slept in the vinyl hospital chair. I learned how to thicken his drinks and lift him without hurting his shoulder. I read Steinbeck out loud while machines hummed and nurses whispered outside the curtain. When he finally spoke again, voice thin but stubborn, he squeezed my hand. "You came." That winter, I asked Mom about estate planning. Not money, not division, just clarity. What happens to the house, to Dad's trust? She smiled the tight smile she used at church when someone asked about politics. "Camille and I have it handled. Don't worry your pretty head." I stopped asking. The last time I tried to visit the beach house, the spare key wasn't under the mat. Camille said they'd changed the locks after a break-in. I never saw a police report. I started skipping holidays. My cards stopped getting replies. On Facebook, they called me busy, distant, work-obsessed. I let them. One afternoon, Mom posted a throwback photo of Camille and Dad on the beach, sunset behind them. I remember that picture. I took it. I was standing 2 feet to the left. She cropped me out. That was the year I stopped sending gifts. But I didn't stop watching. Savannah, my old neighbor, now a paralegal in Atlanta, kept me looped in quietly, screenshots, email threads I'd been removed from, property tax reminders forwarded just in case. Once she texted, "They think you disappeared." I wrote back, "I didn't disappear. I stepped back." And sometimes the people who forget you fastest are the ones most afraid of what happens when you come forward. I didn't buy the house out of revenge. I bought it because I was done pretending my absence was accidental. The listing had been live 13 days, buried in a real estate newsletter, no family announcement. The property wasn't even under Whitmore anymore. It had been transferred into an LLC after Dad died. Clean, neutral, easy to sell without emotional noise. I understood that language. I worked in corporate strategy. I'd seen families turn memories into line items before, but I wasn't emotional. I was precise. I printed the listing, called a friend in property law, then Savannah. We ran a title search that night. 10 minutes later, she went quiet. "Clara, there's a clause. Dad's original trust had a fallback provision. If the primary beneficiaries failed to maintain taxes, insurance, or proper disclosure, the secondary beneficiary could claim reassignment of title. Taxes were overdue, insurance had lapsed. Not sabotage, not tragedy, just arrogance. They assumed the house would sit untouched until they decided its fate. But Dad had built a back door just in case. "If you want it," Savannah said softly, "it's yours. No courtroom, no fight." I looked at the turquoise shell on my desk, its color still bright after 25 years. I could almost feel sand between my toes, hear Dad's voice carried on wind. "You think in tides, not waves. You come back stronger." That night, I opened a spreadsheet. My savings, stock options, liquid assets, everything I'd built quietly while they were busy being visible. I wasn't flashy. I was stable. 2 days later, I called the listing agent. She didn't place my name at first until I said, "Thomas Whitmore's daughter." She paused. "Oh, you're the other one." "Yes," I said calmly, "the other one." I executed the claim through the trust clause, filed the reassignment. Notice served properly, documents airtight, no announcement, no drama. Then I made a reservation. Check-in Friday, master suite, guest name Miss C. Whitmore, preference, firm pillows, cotton sheets, bottle of Perrier Jouet on ice. When the confirmation email arrived, I didn't smile. I didn't cry, I just breathed. They erased me from the invitation. I added myself to the deed. I arrived a day early, not to greet anyone, not to make a scene, just to see the house before memory and reality argued about what it had become. It looked smaller. Or maybe I had finally grown into my own outline. The porch swing still leaned left. The shutters needed paint. Someone had replaced the old brass lantern with a cheap solar light that flickered like it didn't trust the dark. But the air was the same, salt and warmth and history settling into your lungs like something familiar. I walked through slowly. My footsteps echoed in rooms that used to hold noise. The hallway still had the faint dent from when Camille rammed a toy stroller into the wall in 1990. The kitchen window still stuck halfway unless you lifted it gently first. I ran my hand along the dining table where Dad once carved a tiny C underneath, just to prove to me that quiet people still leave marks. I checked the master suite. The champagne was on ice. The sheets turned down. My name spelled correctly on the welcome card. That detail landed deeper than I expected. Then I left. I didn't want my first night back to be about confrontation. I parked 2 streets over in a rental sedan and waited. Friday evening arrived soft and gold. At 6:42 p.m.'s white Audi pulled into the driveway. Her husband stepped out first, already annoyed at something small. The kids spilled out arguing over a tablet charger. Camille emerged last, sunglasses still on like the sun answered to her. Next came Mom, riding with Uncle Roger. She wore resort linen and pearls, no makeup. Just the polished calm of a woman who believes grace can erase anything. They moved toward the entrance laughing, arms full of tote bags and expectations. I watched through the windshield as they stepped inside. And then everything stopped. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the confusion. The front desk clerk, young, pink hair tucked behind one ear, checked her screen again, apologetic smile. The kind trained for weather delays and overbookings, not family implosions. I stepped out of the car then. My heels hit the tile inside with quiet certainty. I didn't rush. I didn't hesitate. I simply arrived. The clerk looked relieved when she saw me. "Ma'am, are you Miss Clara Whitmore?" I nodded. I can clarify. I handed over my ID, the property deed finalized 2 weeks ago. The full reservation is under my name. Camille turned slowly. You bought the house, yes. Mom's voice came softer. Why would you do this? I met her eyes without anger, because I was never invited. But I was never gone. The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was heavy. Camille stepped forward. You think humiliating us proves something? No, I said gently. It settles something. I turned back to the clerk. Anyone not on my guest list shouldn't be checked in. Please be kind. They're family. The clerk nodded, unsure where to look. No one shouted, no dramatic exits, just stiff shoulders and eyes that refused to meet mine. They gathered their bags and walked back outside together like strangers who'd taken the same wrong turn. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. They knew now. That night I slept in the house for the first time in 12 years. The ocean hummed outside my window, steady and patient. I thought it would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt like alignment. Like something crooked had finally clicked into place. But peace rarely arrives without resistance. The next morning, a news van parked outside the hedges. A man with too much hair gel adjusted his tie while a cameraman framed the house like a crime scene. I didn't answer the door, but my phone exploded anyway. Texts, emails, unknown numbers. A headline link sent 12 times. Daughter exploits legal loophole to seize family home while father was ill. I read it once, then set the phone face down. No statement. No outrage, just a call to Savannah. It's time, I said. I know, she replied. Files coming. Inside the folder she sent were years of truth, screenshots where Camille wrote, "Don't feel bad excluding Clara. She's used to it," audio clips of casual cruelty wrapped in laughter. But the most important file was the porch video, Dad in his blanket, voice soft but curt. I want Clara to have this place. Camille makes things loud. Clara makes things last. I sent everything to one investigative reporter I trusted. No commentary, just context. By evening, the story shifted. The headline softened. Corrections appeared quietly where accusations had been. That night, Savannah texted, "They're quiet. You ready?" I looked at the dark ocean stretching endless beyond the porch. Yes. The courthouse smelled like paper and old air. I wore a navy dress my grandmother once called steel-willed blue. No entourage. No dramatic entrance. Camille sat ahead of me in white, back straight, fingers tapping her phone like panic had a rhythm. Their lawyer spoke first, words like influence, vulnerability, doubt. I listened without reacting. When it was my turn, I simply said, "Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence of my father's stated intent." The video played. Dad's voice filled the room, calm and unmistakable. "I want Clara to have this place. She's the one who came, the one who didn't ask for anything." Silence settled differently this time. Heavy, not confused. The judge removed his glasses. This court enforces law, not feelings. Intent is clear. Petition denied. The gavel fell soft but final. Outside, reporters waited. One asked if I had anything to say to my family. I paused. "No," I said quietly. "I already did. I just used paperwork instead of words." Then I walked past them into sunlight that felt warmer than before. The house felt different when I returned. Not louder, not brighter, just honest. The kind of quiet that doesn't hide anything. I opened every window and let the ocean air move through rooms that had been holding their breath for years. Dust lifted, curtains stirred, floorboards sighed like they recognized my footsteps. I didn't rush to redecorate or renovate. Some places don't need to be changed. They need to be acknowledged. In the hallway closet, I found the old beach umbrellas, metal ribs bent, fabric faded to a tired blue. I remembered Dad fighting with one in a windstorm, laughing while it tried to become a kite. I left them there. Not everything broken needs fixing. Some things are proof that joy happened here. In his old office, I sat on the floor and opened the bottom drawer, the one nobody ever cleaned out. Inside was the shell wind chime we made together when I was 9. Fishing line tangled, knots frayed. My initials still scratched into one shell. CW. I traced the letters slowly like braille for memory. I didn't cry. I just started untangling, one knot at a time. Savannah arrived that afternoon with grocery bags and a look that said she'd rehearsed a speech but decided against it. "You good?" she asked. I nodded. We cleaned in silence, 2 women scrubbing away years of being edited out of our own stories. By sunset, the house smelled like lemon oil and sea air. I hung the wind chime outside the kitchen window. When the breeze caught it, the sound was soft and uneven. Not musical, not perfect, but real. We sat on the porch with paper cups of wine. "What now?" Savannah asked. I looked at the horizon where the sky met water in a line too steady to argue with. "Now," I said, "I stop waiting to be included. And I start choosing who belongs." The legal letters started arriving a week later, not threats, not quite apologies. Just careful language asking about visitation schedules and shared access rights. I responded through my attorney with the same calm precision they once mistook for absence. The trust allowed guest use at the owner's discretion. I created a booking calendar. Family could request time like anyone else. No priority, no assumptions, equal process, equal boundaries. It wasn't punishment. It was structure. They didn't like structure when they weren't controlling it. Camille sent one message directly late one night. I didn't know you felt this way. I stared at it for a long time before replying. I didn't feel this way, you behaved this way. There's a difference. She didn't answer after that, months passed. The house settled into a new rhythm. I hosted a writer's retreat in spring. An art therapist rented it for a grief workshop in June. People filled the rooms with stories, healing, quiet laughter. The house wasn't a museum anymore. It was alive again. One afternoon in late August, Mom called. I almost didn't answer. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. I drove by the house today, she said. I didn't go in, I just sat in the car for a while. I waited, she cleared her throat. I should have done better by you. I didn't rescue her from the discomfort. Some truths need to stand on their own legs. I know you're right was all I said, but it was enough. We didn't fix everything that day. We didn't rewind time, but we started speaking without pretending. And sometimes that's the most justice you get. The final court document arrived in early fall. All claims closed. Property rights uncontested. Case resolved. I placed the paperwork in Dad's old desk drawer next to the wind chime string I had left over. Proof doesn't always need a frame. Sometimes it just needs a place to rest. On the anniversary of Dad's passing, I walked down to the shoreline at sunrise. The water rolled in steady, tide after tide. I held the turquoise shell in my palm, the one he gave me decades ago. You think in tides, not waves, I whispered. I didn't win by shouting. I didn't win by hurting them back. I won by staying. By building a life so solid they couldn't write me out of it anymore. And by the time they noticed, I didn't need the invitation. If this story stayed with you, if you've ever been erased, overlooked, or quietly pushed to the margins, know this absence is not the same as insignificance. Sometimes the quiet ones are just gathering proof, building strength, waiting for the tide to turn. If this meant something to you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps more stories like this find the people who need them. And sometimes, being seen starts with pressing one small button.